If you're one of the 72% of Americans planning to take a road trip this year, don't forget your toll pass. Oh, and this one. And that other one. And a few more, plus a bunch of quarters, depending on where you're going, just to be safe. There are, after all, over 130 toll systems across 34 states, so you better be prepared. If this situation frustrates you, allow me to make it worse. Technically, by now, you should be able to have just one transponder. Congress passed a law in 2012 requiring what's called interoperability between all the nation's toll systems, a concept that means one pass would work for every toll. That law was supposed to take effect in 2016. Yet here you are in 2021, emerging from the pandemic and packing 3 or 4 transponders for your cross-country trip. What gives? Infrastructure Week may be a worn-out joke by now, but bear with me because it's really important. Especially for highways. There are about 6,000 miles of toll roads in the US, and since 88% of all travel is done by car, odds are good that this applies to you. Let's take it back to the beginning. Tolls were critical for establishing the early United States. The Revolutionary War left the new nation independent, but strapped for cash. So toll roads became the method du jour for connecting the towns and cities. By the 1830s, about 10,000 to 20,000 miles of private toll roads formed the nation's early transportation network. Toll roads went in and out of vogue in the coming decades. By 1850, competition from railroads began shuttering most toll authorities, and those roads became public and toll-free. But by the eve of World War I, the country needed more roads because Americans had begun their long-standing love affair with cars. The government was against using federal funds for toll roads, mandating in a 1916 act that all roads constructed under provision of this act be free from tolls of all kinds. So the states did it alone. Connecticut and New York toyed with toll roads in the 20s and 30s, but the first big hit opened in 1940. This bad boy, the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Its financial success prompted other states to establish their own toll authorities. By 1955, there were 1,200 miles of toll roads, about 1,400 under construction, and another 3,300 in the planning stage. In other words, a toll road bonanza. And because they all used cash, it was a fully interoperable system. But Congress brought construction of new toll roads to a halt in 1956, when it established the Highway Trust Fund with fuel taxes. It wasn't until the late 1980s that two forces collided to spark another toll road renaissance and set up today's road trip nightmare. The first, declining fuel tax revenue.
For a while, Americans drove and bought more and more gasoline. And there was really no reason to raise that rate that much. At some point, Americans started changing driving habits and buying more fuel-efficient cars, started purchasing less gasoline. This meant less gas tax revenue, that meant less money for infrastructure projects.
Compounding that issue was an unwillingness on the part of politicians to raise the gas tax rates.
It's just difficult for policymakers to go vote for a new funding source because there's going to be a headline that says, this legislator, this governor supported a tax increase. So it's politically challenging.
Congress has not raised the federal rate since 1993, and it isn't tied to inflation. This means that the actual purchasing power of federal gas tax revenue has declined. Similarly, most states resisted raising their rates until quite recently. But the nation still wanted to maintain existing roads and build new ones. Enter, once again, Toll roads. The number of toll roads grew 29% from 1990 to 2015, an average of 54.7 miles per year. But this time, they used a new technology, the second force that set up today's situation: electronic tolling.
In the late 1980s, a group of toll agencies in the Northeast, they started experimenting with electronic toll collection so that the customer, when they approached the toll facility, they didn't have to hunt around for coins or change or dollars to pay their toll.
A side effect of this new technology was the sudden division of roads into different operability regions.
If you were the New Jersey Turnpike, you may not think about, well, I should be worried about the customers on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, because that's another state away. So I might develop a technology that's unique to my customers, in the same way that Starbucks or Domino's Pizza would develop an app for its customers to make it easier for them to purchase product in their stores.
This made driving across multiple states more difficult. It was especially problematic in the Northeast, where drivers frequently cross state lines.
The agencies in New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania got to thinking, hey, there probably is quite a bit of cross traffic among these three states. And so 7 agencies in those 3 states formed what is today called Easy Pass, in which everybody, all 7 of those agencies, were using the same tag and reader, and they were interoperable among those 7 agencies.
Easy Pass has slowly added more states since the 1990s. With Georgia, Minnesota, and Florida joining the agreement this year, Easy Pass will soon cover 19 states. Before Easy Pass, Georgia formed an agreement with North Carolina and Florida in 2014.
And there are, I would say, roughly 4 large regions. Easy Pass in the Northeast, Sun Pass in the Southeast, there's a central United States hub, and there's a Western hub. And that makes a lot of sense because, for instance, you don't see a lot of people from, let's say, New York wanting to use a toll facility in Colorado or Oklahoma.
But for the rare time a New Yorker does want to drive through Oklahoma, shouldn't there be national interoperability by now? Why didn't that 2012 law take effect in 2016? In short, it didn't have any teeth. With no penalty for not achieving national interoperability, toll authorities hashed out how to achieve some interoperability on their own.
The initial 2012 law was a little vague, and perhaps the outcome that was sought was impossible to achieve. And so what we have done is achieve that on a regional basis.
Full national interoperability isn't completely off the table. One infrastructure design firm predicts it could exist as soon as 2025. And that's good news, because we may need to rely on tolls more and more going forward. Even though 36 states have raised their gas tax rates since 2010, it's still not enough, especially since the coronavirus pandemic kept millions of Americans at home, not driving their cars. The Federal Highway Administration estimates a $435 billion backlog just for maintenance of existing roads. And with electric cars coming onto the market, the future of fuel tax revenue continues to look bleak.
In about roughly the past decade, gas tax revenues have increased about 10%. Revenue from tolls have increased about 75%. So you're clearly seeing a choice being made that when they need money, state and local policymakers are turning to tolls as an alternative.
Thanks for watching, and let us know what you think. Should states add more toll roads, increase their gas tax rates, or something else? Let us know, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos.